Success at the Paris Climate Change Conference as delegates from 195 nations reach a global agreement. The agreement takes effect in 2020, and each country must create and monitor its own carbon reduction plan. The goal is to limit the rise of the average global temperatures to under 2 degrees Celsius. Nations have to report on and update their plan every 5 years. The richest nations have agreed to create a fund worth $137 billion a year by 2020 to help developing nations achieve their carbon reduction goals. To talk more about this deal, we're joined from Paris by Tim Gray. He's the Executive Director of Environmental Defense. Good morning, Mr. Gray.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. So this is a start and a good one, but what matters now is what happens now. What should happen next?
Well, I think for Canada, we have a clear path forward. Our new government has promised to develop a plan with the provinces within 90 days, so the clock has started to tick. Fortunately, I think in Canada, there's been a huge amount of work already by municipalities, cities like Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal, as well as the provinces. Even just in the lead up to this conference, there was a huge move towards bringing in carbon pricing, most recently even with Manitoba. So there's a lot of work that's been done, but at a federal government level, one of the key things that can be done is to ensure the carbon price across the country. We also have promised regulations on the oil and gas industry that have been languishing for years. Those definitely could be moved forward very quickly by the federal government. There's also the keeping the election commitment to ensure that there's some kind of climate test on any new fossil fuel infrastructure that's built in Canada. So for things like pipelines, to ensure that whatever they enable don't exceed the commitments that we've just made. On the investment side, there's huge opportunities in the electrification of public transportation, changing our rules around building codes for both industrial buildings, but also for people's homes to make them more efficient. We have huge opportunities in terms of making it possible for people to buy electric vehicles and drive them across the country by putting in charging stations, and by taking some of the money that we might raise from a carbon price and reinvesting that in helping companies that are starting up in the clean tech sector move to viability and be able to sell their products around the world. So this is a huge opportunity for Canada, and I'm very proud to see the role that we played in the negotiations and are setting ourselves up to move forward for a clean economy.
Some have said because this was voluntary, yes, 195 nations united to get this done, but it was voluntary. And when you look at Kyoto and the fact that the U.S. backed out of that, how confident are you that there'll be lasting results?
I think what you're seeing at this COP, this conference, and with what you saw the final day on the enthusiasm around signing this agreement, is the recognition that the people of the world are moving. And since the failure of the Copenhagen COP, people around the world have taken making the changes on climate into their own hands. And we've seen this so much in Canada, where the public has mobilized over the last number of years to ensure that projects that take us backwards are resisted and that there's a constant demand for new policies and new programs to move towards a clean economy. You've also seen massive changes in the business world. Companies like Tesla emerging onto the scene, which really threatened the internal combustion engine, green energy production around the planet, speeding up, more investment now in alternative energy than there is in the fossil fuel economy. Massive price decreases in solar and wind energy. So it's happening. The business community recognizes this. The public is demanding it. And I think what you saw in Paris is a reflection of that.
Tim Gray is the Executive Director of Environmental Defense, joining us from Paris this morning.